In Lebanon, Hezbollah fired a barrage of rockets at Israeli troops following an attempt to invade its territory. In less than 3 hours, Hurricane Milton, which is already considered one of the deadliest of the last 100 years, will make landfall in the southern United States. And Haiti has accused the Dominican Republic of carrying out ethnic cleansing with the mass deportation of its nationals. Hello, welcome from the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. In Lebanon, Hezbollah fired a barrage of rockets at Israeli troops following an attempt to invade territory. After an address by Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, in which he threatened Lebanese citizens to end up like Gaza, a contingent of the Genocide Army was deployed in northern Israel. The promise to enter the territory was repelled by Hezbollah fighters from where they claimed to have repelled two invasion attempts, one of them in the southeast through the Blida Pass and the other in the southwest through the Labounie Pass. In the same context, Israeli airstrikes have escalated significantly in southern Lebanon, particularly targeting the village of Hiam and the coastal city of Tire. The village of Hiam has faced direct airstrikes, with reports indicating that Israeli aircraft bombarded over 30 towns and villages surrounding Tire. Reports indicate that at least 10 firefighters were killed during a strike while they were preparing for rescue operations. The Lebanese Health Ministry has recorded over 1,400 deaths since the onset of this conflict, with many more injured and displaced due to the ongoing violence. In the last hours, Israeli genocidal forces have committed an indeterminate number of massacres in Gaza with weapons provided by the U.S. UNRWA coordinator Philip Lazzarini described the situation this morning in the north of the Strip as an endless hell. The Gaza Health Ministry has registered over 60 killings, but authorities warn that their toll is much higher, judging by the corpses lying on roads and due to the speed with which the massacres are being perpetrated. In this sense, the first briefing of the oral figure confirms that Israel has slaughtered 42,010 people so far, including over 17,000 children and about 12,000 women, representing 69% of the fatalities. And Israeli genocidal forces, armed by the U.S., have been besieging 400,000 defenseless Palestinians in northern Gaza since early Wednesday morning. According to the Commissioner General of the United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestinian Refugees in the Near East, Philip Lazzarini, hundreds of bodies can be seen on the streets. It is impossible to collect them as fire does not stop. The fear of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu about expelling Palestinians from the northern strip is being fulfilled before the international community's eyes. Israel has sent eviction orders to Kamal Adwan Hospital and to several refugee camps, giving them 24 hours to evacuate and thus making Gaza a death trap. Let's take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you'll find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Hurricane Milton downgraded to Category 4 on its path towards Florida at 26 kilometers per hour. The storm continues to pose a grave danger, bringing potentially historical destructive, life-threatening storm surges, widespread wind damage, flooding, rainfall, and tornadoes beginning Wednesday. Losses are estimated to exceed $175 billion. In less than 30 hours, Hurricane Milton, which is already considered one of the deadliest of the last 100 years, will make landfall in the southern United States. With Milton expected to hit Tampa Bay, Florida's Governor Ron DeSantis has declared an emergency in 52 of the 67 counties of the southernmost state. In this sense, evacuations are proving complex as federal authorities' recent mid-handling of Hurricane Helene has left many wary of the government's strategies. In this context, President Biden, who postponed a trip to Germany to monitor the storm's impact, made a life or death threat to Floridians in the storm's path, urging them to evacuate.
Most importantly, I've urged everyone currently located in Hurricane Milton's path to listen to local officials and follow safety instructions. You all have been reporting on the highways, shoulders being opened, everybody's heading out. And if you're under evacuation orders, you should evacuate now. You should have already evacuated. It's a matter of life and death, and that's not hyperbole. It's a matter of life and death.
In Brazil, a 6-year-old girl and an adult are missing following a landslide in the state of Amazonas, which occurred on Monday in the municipality of Manacapuru. The incident caused the collapse of a river port and left at least 10 people injured, 2 of whom remain hospitalized. Authorities are carrying out search and rescue efforts using divers to explore both the nearby terrain and the river. It is estimated that around 200 people have been trapped by the landslide, although authorities have not confirmed this figure or the causes of the incident. Clovis Araujo, Deputy Secretary of Civil Defense, has recommended that riverside communities implement contingency plans to prevent future natural disasters, especially in the face of the fallen land phenomenon associated with the current drought in the region.
When we went to pull out the fish, it was windy, so we moved the boat to the middle. Once we did that, the ground began to collapse. It gave way right where the boat was, where we were fishing. Our canoes and rafts sank to the bottom, along with everything that had been near the edge. We were no longer leaning against the edge. We had moved the boat to the middle because the wind was very strong at that time. That's when it started to collapse. If we had stayed there, both boats would have sunk both of Captain de Vera's boats.
Chile's National Disaster Prevention and Response Service, SENAPRED, decreed a red alert for Easter Island at midnight on Wednesday due to a major forest fire. At least 80 hectares of the Chilean island located in Oceania are being affected by the flames. According to the planning released by SENAPRED, during the night of Wednesday, a guard was activated by the Maua Henua indigenous community, as well as 2 brigades of the National Forestry Corporation, technicians and firefighters in the area. According to the last report, the right flank of the fire has been controlled. And fires are becoming more and more recurrent in Spain, and every summer thousands of hectares end up under forest fires. Budget issues, climate change, and lack of prevention are some of the key factors. Let's take a closer look at the details with our correspondent, Andres Flores.
According to a study by Eurostat, the European Statistical Office, the 21 member states for which data is available invested an average of 0.5% of total public spending on fire prevention in 2022. Spain's expenditure is 0.4%, below the European average. Mark Castelna is a firefighter and recalls the devastating consequences of the 2022 fire in Catalonia, which still leaves traces today.
In the afternoon, the dry wind from the north of the Pyrenees left a trail of flames in the northern Pyrenees, in the area of Beaumort, in the area of the Val Fosca, and especially concentrated in the Ribera Salada and the Val de Reyes, right in the hard core of the Segre River. We have had almost 8 fires in the Segre area. They are fires with all the accumulated potential of all that sector, up to almost 1,000 hectares. And the next day the calls came to the Ladures area. And the total potential of the Segre flames, plus the Val de Reyes flames, the Salt River flames, and the flames in the Ladures area amounted to 26,000 hectares.
It is often said that fires are put out in winter. Fires are best extinguished not in summer, when they burn, but in winter.
Climate change, according to the experts consulted, plays an important role in the factors that have increased the number of forest fires.
There has been a certain increase in the recurrence of forest fires, which can be attributed to three main reasons. On the one hand, an increase in the forest area in Spain, especially in the northern area, as in much of Europe, there has been a recovery of the forest. Secondly, because there has been a population growth, a greater urbanization of the territory, and people are closer to the forest. And thirdly, because of climate change which, in the case of Spain, is leading us towards a more arid and warmer climate, which means that the risk of fire is also greater.
Palma Grau stresses the importance of fire prevention beyond fighting fires once they have occurred.
The means to extinguish them are not enough. They will never be enough to face all these new causes that accelerate fires, that make them more destructive. The only way to prevent them would be through active management throughout the year. That is to say, to favor the recovery of a mosaic landscape that is not a continuous extension of forests, but that there are areas of crops, open meadows, and this interrupts fires, it makes a natural fire break. And at the same time, there are also areas around the villages, around the roads of small towns, more of rural Spain, where traditional extensive grazing also reduces the fuel, and also slows down the capacity of fires to cover large dimensions. Therefore, the solution lies in good forest management, a recovery of traditional uses, and yes, means of extinction. But it is certain that there will never be the capacity to face a big fire, so it is necessary to prevent it more than to extinguish it. It is necessary to prevent it.
Andrés Flores, teleSUR, Barcelona.
We have a second short break coming up, but before we invite you to visit our YouTube channel at teleSUR English, where you'll be able to rewatch our interviews, top stories, special broadcastings, and more. Hit the subscribe button and activate the notification bell to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. Final short break, don't go away. Welcome back. Haiti has accused the Dominican Republic of carrying out an ethnic cleansing with the mass deportation of its nationals. This is what Dominic Thomas, the ambassador to the Organization of American States, said on Tuesday. The diplomat described as immoral the strategies employed by Santo Domingo against Haitians. Given the seriousness of the situation, Prime Minister Gary Conille ordered the creation of an interministerial committee to provide a diplomatic and humanitarian response. The Haitian ambassador assured that the authorities of the neighboring country commit flagrant violations of human rights. Several organizations inside and outside Haiti support the statements of Ambassador Thomas. In Venezuela, President Nicolás Maduro held a meeting with Secretary General of the Organization of Oil Exporting Countries, Haitham Al-Ghais, to discuss the current outlook for the international energy market. During the meeting held in Caracas, topics such as the development of the OPEC Plus bylaws and the expectations of the hydrocarbons market were discussed. This meeting was accompanied by national cabinet authorities as well as the president of Petróleos de Venezuela, Héctor Obregón, and the vice ministers of the state oil company. In this context, it is important to remember that Venezuela plays a fundamental role in the OPEC member countries, as it is the world leader in the hydrocarbons market and has the largest reserves of crude oil. In the United Kingdom, restoration experts pieced together silent Sherlock Holmes mysteries. Sherlock Holmes fans are being promised a most authentic depiction of the fictional detective with the restoration of a century-old silent film series chronicling the London sleuth's adventures. The films are being restored by staff at the British Film Institute's National Archive. Audiences will get a first glimpse of the restored works from the early 1920s next week at a London Film Festival screening. The films will be accompanied by a newly commissioned live score from Royal Academy of Music performance.
Closely adapted from the original stories, so they're not just Sherlock Holmes as a character doing some stuff. in a film, they are actually following the line of the original Conan Doyle stories, and they were approved by him. He really loved the actor Eileen Norwood as well, who he thought really looked the part. And we're just getting to the point where we're about to premiere the first programme. So what we've done is to take an episode from each of the series, and these will form a programme called Silent Sherlock 3 Classic Cases, which is going to show in the London Film Festival at the Victorian Theatre in Alexandra Palace, which is a very beautifully appropriate venue.
The Japanese invasion of Manchuria created a serious threat to the security of the Soviet Union. On the occasion of the commemoration of the important historical events of almost a century ago, an extraordinary exhibition was organized in Moscow. Let's see.
Rare photographs and documents are on display at the Victory Museum in Moscow. Little is known about this military conflict that some Japanese historians even call the Second Russian-Japanese War. The conflict began with demands from the Japanese side to recognize the Jelgin-Gol River as the border between the Manchukuo puppet state and Mongolia, although the border extended 20 to 25 kilometers to the east.
The objective was to create a springboard in this territory for a further advance into China and the occupation and exploitation of the Soviet Far East and Siberia.
As part of the USSR-Mongolia Mutual Assistance Protocol, Soviet troops were sent to the Jelgin-Gol River area. In addition, Japan raised the slogan of expanding its empire as far as Lake Baikal. Military operations began in May 1939 and continued until the end of August. One of the key roles as a military strategist was played by the future Victory Marshal Georgy Zhukov. It was he, who at the time was a division commander, who devised a plan to encircle the Japanese army.
The methods used in the military operations that Zhukov undertook in Jelgin-Gol were used during the Great Patriotic War against Hitler's Germany.
The Jelgin-Gol conflict became a real test of strength for the Soviet army. The fighting took place both on the ground and in the air. By the end of August, the Japanese already found themselves surrounded by a dense ring of Soviet and Mongolian troops. The final battle took place at the end of August, lasted 6 days, and ended with the total defeat of the Kwantum Army. The armistice between the USSR and Japan was concluded on September 15, 1939.
Zhukov showed himself to the country's top army leaders as a person capable of making decisions and taking responsibility. He was technically versed and capable of carrying out operational camouflage. These are the 3 foundations on which any good industrial-era military relies.
In general, we treated the people, the cadets, like in the schools, and we taught them single combat. And here for the first time there were group battles and with an opponent who had a lot of experience. After all, few of us went through Spain. But the Japanese have been fighting since 1931, that is, they have been fighting for 8 years.
The victory of the USSR and Mongolia at Jelgin-Gol became one of the main reasons for Japan's refusal to attack the USSR before the beginning of the Great Patriotic War. And then the decision was made to wait until Germany was sure of winning. The plan developed by the Japanese for an offensive military campaign against the USSR was never implemented, although the USSR still maintained considerable forces for defense in the Far East in the event of a Japanese invasion.
teleSUR, Moscow.
We have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website, telesurenglish.net. So join us on social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For teleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thanks for watching.